Today, let's have a bit of fun because this topic is actually quite sad. Recession. JP Morgan Strategies believes that stocks are implying an 85% chance of US recession. In Europe, it's not much better, probably an 80% chance. So let's talk about what we can do so that we are constructive. And today, I have 8 key points. Without further ado, let's dive on to the first and most obvious one, which is don't buy a new car right now. If you look at the latest COE figures, you would realize that Cat B, which is cars that's above 1600cc, the one which I'm using, Mazda 6, is right now COE of $106,001. That is a $5,317 increment from the previous COE price. Wow, $100,000 just for a piece of paper. And this paper only lasts for 10 years, which means $10,000 a year down the drain. And you know, many of us, when we buy cars, we usually take on a 7-year loan. And every loan that comes on the books right now is just going to be unhealthy because in terms of recessions, we're all probably seeing lower bonuses or even the threat of unemployment. So if we're able to hold off a car purchase and a recession does indeed take place, do expect to see that the COE price might actually drop significantly. If we look in terms of the COVID period, February and March 2020, you would see that COE prices actually dipped, correct? You see that everybody was trending down in that crisis period. If we zoom in for a particular one, in March 2020, the second tender, you realize that the same Cat B was only $30,000. And within that month itself, it actually lost close to 10% because the previous bid was around $33,000. So COE prices have more than 3x really. And if you're itching to buy a new car, maybe try to hold off a bit more because COE prices could very well correct if a recession hits. Number 2 on today's list is not take up a big mortgage loan. Now, for myself, I actually seen a big jump in terms of the interest that I'm paying for a month-to-month basis. From May to June, I'm actually paying almost $200 more because my floating rate has increased from 1.7% to 2.1%. That is only with an $800,000 mortgage. So assuming you take on a big mortgage loan of $1.6 million, you could see, if your rates are also floating, a $400 jump on a month-to-month basis. Nowadays, fixed rates are hovering close to 2.5% really, so it's pretty late to lock in numbers. So the best thing to do is to prevent taking on big loans, especially if your employment is not as secure as some industries. Taking on a loan that costs you your CPF as well as your cash is just going to bite pretty hard, especially in a recession. Item number 3, don't rake up too much credit debt. Credit is actually spending future money, correct? When you take on a car loan, that's credit. When you take on a mortgage loan, that's also credit. But there are other forms of credit that you need to avoid also, such as doing a lot of buy now, pay later programs. These programs are actually good if you know how to manage your cash flows well. But if you overspend and spend future money, that's when debt starts to come in at a point where it is not ideal. So take note again, be extra prudent. Don't shackle yourself with future debt. Item number 4 for today is to go and exercise for free. Don't sign up any gym memberships. Reports have suggested in Australia, $1.8 billion is wasted on unused gym memberships. In Britain, you realize that they have stated a $4 billion a year unused gym memberships. And I couldn't find any data for Singapore, but my guess is that pretty much a lot of gym memberships are also wasted. Because when we sign a package, thinking that we'll be going 3 times a week, but at the end of the day, we only go 3 times a month because of hectic work, etc. etc. So gym memberships cost us $100 to $200 per month basis, and that money can be actually fueled towards investing quite easily. And all you need to do is just to go and exercise downstairs. Item number 5 is to avoid signing up expensive recreational classes for yourself and your children. Nowadays, parents spend a lot of money on children recreational classes. I've seen before art classes, piano classes, dancing classes. Some are important, but some are just purely recreational. And for adults, I've also seen before signing up for expensive cooking classes that cost a few $1,000s, where their interest is actually not sustained, and the intention of signing up for that course was not to find a second career. If you want to spend money to upskill yourself, then by all means, because in a recession, you never know if you need new job opportunities, and every new thing that you can add onto your CV definitely makes sense. I applaud friends who go to sign up for cloud computing classes or cybersecurity classes out of their own time and out of their own expense, because that gives them a lot more protection when it comes to recession. So think about it, recreational classes or upskilling classes. Item number 6 is to avoid buying luxury watches. I don't even have a basic watch. But luxury watches was a big trend in 2021 and 2022, start of it only actually. I've actually seen this topic being brought about more in forums as well as within my friend circle because cryptocurrencies were crashing, stock markets were crashing. At that point of time, luxury watches were still a safe haven for things. But look at this headline. Rolex watches have ticked down in May as a year of unprecedented growth has become unsustainable. If you look in terms of Rolex prices, you'll see that downturn actually happened in March of 2022. So unless you can comfortably afford a luxury watch and unless you really use it on a day-to-day basis, you're probably better off investing like the stock market because in the long-term basis, it's been proven to be a good place to build your wealth. Item number 7 is to look for permanent jobs and try to avoid contract-based ones. I'm not an expert in HR, so if you are, do leave comments on how someone can actually better do their CV to land a permanent job. But especially if you're older, in a contract situation, it is common knowledge that the risk of being unemployed is very high. The usual question that we may all have now is that, hey, unemployment seems pretty low right now, correct? Why is there a recession? Let me show you a chart. You can see over here that at every juncture before a recession, shaded in grey, is a period of low unemployment, correct? That is when labour markets are tight. And US Fed is well aware of the fact, and if they are able to tolerate a higher unemployment number, they can curtail wage inflation because when labour market is tight, wages are priced up. Right now, dishwashers are already paid more than $2,000. So if wage inflation is curtailed, general inflation economy starts to subside. So that's a big picture thing that you need to be aware of. So don't take your employment for granted. Work hard at it, prove yourself, and start networking. Maybe that's also another way to reduce unemployment risk. Before we get to the 8th and final point, if I need to smash the like button, it's taking our team hours to prepare this content for you. And I'll suggest a few things first before giving you that 8th point. Review your budgets. Look very carefully where your expenses are right now. Don't wait until recession. Learn to see where your numbers are flowing and how much you're able to save per month basis. Look at where your long-term liabilities are and make sure you have backup plans. Second, double check whether you have emergency cash or not. If you become unemployed, you may or may not get a compensation. So if you have emergency cash, you know that you can still pay for the house and keep the lights on. That is very important for mental health and keeps you going when times are hard. So with that, let's go on to the 8th and final point that I have for you today, which is to avoid pumping money into your kids' CPF or even to your own CPF. Now, CPF is actually a fantastic vehicle to compound money. I've been a big advocate of it. But right now, if we were to see a recession, you may need liquid money, and CPF monies cannot be accessed unless you have full lump sum at age of 55. And for children, if you pump the monies there, they are not likely going to be able to access it in the hardest time during recessions. And a further point to note is that right now, stock markets are correcting. Crypto markets are correcting. Maybe moving forward, property markets may also correct. The market may present you opportunities to deliver more than 2.5% in CPF OA returns or even 4% in CPF SA returns. Even the Singapore savings bonds right now are paying a 3% rate of return for a 10-year basis. So there are a lot of avenues for you to park monies that can generate you returns. So if you're keen to find out, smash on subscribe. I'll be covering a bit more on the latest figures for Singapore savings bonds. Maybe that tutorial will help you. And since you stayed to here, let me invite you to a previous tutorial I've done, which is why I'll be personally evaluating whether I'll be topping up more to CPF moving forward or not. I know if you've seen the tutorial, it gives you some insights on what to expect and what to look out for. And I'll see you there too. Take care as always. Goodbye.